This show is brought to you in part by viewers like you who joined a Patreon or become YouTube members. Thank you. And if you could, hit the like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
All right, so we talked about how this era it is, and we kind of, at the end of that last video, talked about how it could get better, but let's kind of focus on that for a second. By the way, if you don't know, I'm here with Abby Mueller. She writes for Dogs by Nature. Ab, as miserable as this season has been, I have had there's more of a silver lining to this season than I think others that have been pretty miserable. Like last year, it was like, at least you get your first round picks back, right?
The draft was exciting to look forward to.
Yeah. This year, it's like, okay, you're going to get the insurance benefits from the Watson contract, right? From him not playing for over a calendar year at this point. So we're talking about up to $44 million is what the insurance policy has been reading. So it's going to free up some cap space for you. You're at the final year of that deal. So you're like the last thing that you got to deal with that's going to really affect you with the Watson thing, right, is his roster spot. So you've dealt through the bulk of it. You have 2 first-round picks. You have some money in free agency. You got good draft picks, a lot of draft capital. This is a draft class that seems to have wide receivers. And this is a draft class that seems to have quarterbacks. So it's not the worst year to suck.
Yeah.
Right?
Especially when those are 2 of your really big needs.
Especially when that is your big need and you have 2 first-round picks.
Yep.
Like the depth at wide receiver is super. The Browns don't really need depth at quarterback. They're picking in the top 5, right? Yeah. More than likely picking in the top 5. If they're not picking in the top 5, it's because Shedeur looks amazing, right? Like, okay, cool, whatever. Like, I think they're like a 98% chance to be in the top 10 and then like a 88. So if we're living in the 12% chance that like Shedeur is amazing, cool, we'll do that. We'll re-regulate this conversation. But right now, this is what's most likely. There is actual hope that, like, hey, and also what gives them momentum is what they did in this draft class. Because, like, I know people are like, oh, well, yeah, it's a good draft class, but come on, guys. Like, it's like, no, dude.
Yeah.
Quincy Judkins, if you get 1 pick like that in the draft, you're thrilled with the draft.
Yeah.
You get 1 pick like Carson Schlesinger, you're thrilled with the draft, right? Mason Graham has been a huge win for this team, especially when you look at like how these other defensive linemen are progressing. It's like I make this point all the time. It takes like 2-3 years for a defensive tackle to really be as dominant as you want them to be when you draft them, because they got to get the grown man strength. Mason Graham's already shown he can be effective before he gets that. He's going to be pretty effective once he gets that. Yeah. So you're looking at those 3 picks and you're like, yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, we ain't even talk about Harold Fanin, right, who looks pretty promising. Dylan Sampson, who, look, we haven't seen much of, but what we have seen has been promising. A lot of focus has been on these quarterbacks, but yeah, I've made the point, the more time we get away from this draft class, the less we're going to care about a 3rd-round pick on Dylan Gabriel, a 5th-round pick on Shedeur Sanders, because at the end of the day, they're late day 2 and a day 3 pick. That's not what you're going to focus on, right? So we look at that draft class, feel like we got real momentum going into this offseason. We've seen what they could do when they spend their draft resources on the defense. They built an elite defense. And we're thinking to ourselves, well, now they're going to put that resource into the offense. We've already seen some of these things. Like, it's not hypothetical. They drafted 2 offensive players in this draft class. 2 offensive players in this draft class, and they're the 2 best offensive players on the team.
Yeah.
Like Fannin and Judkins.
Yeah.
So it's not hypothetical. It's not like, oh, we don't know if they could draft offense. They just drafted 2 really good offensive players. So with all of that, how do you feel going into this offseason about the Browns' ability to greatly improve this offseason?
Yeah, so I think you mentioned two of like the big glaring holes, obviously, for this team being quarterback and wide receiver. I think I'd also add offensive line to that, having, some major holes that they need to address probably in the draft because it's really hard to address the offensive line in any other way. So I think, those should be the priorities going into next year. And, if they're able to find a quarterback that they at least, are starting to develop as next season goes on and it feels promising. I think this turnaround could be a lot quicker than a lot of people might feel like with how bad this season has gone. I think you look at it and you're like, wow, this is going to take a long time. But if you are able to get, one wide receiver that you feel good about in the draft, maybe an offensive tackle that you feel pretty good about in the draft, and a quarterback that you're, at least feeling like, okay, we can develop him into something, this team is going to look entirely different next year, just given that they already have a lot of the pieces that they need on defense. I know defense can be inconsistent from year to year, so it's not a guarantee that the defense is going to look as dominant this year, or dominant next year as it did this year. I mean, we obviously saw last year there were a lot of struggles with the defense, so there's definitely going to be some inconsistencies there, but a lot of the pieces are there that they need on that side of the ball. So if you can get maybe three good pieces in the draft on offense that you feel really excited about, I think there's at least hope in that for the future that you'll feel a lot better about things.
And yeah, the defense, it's hard to carry over from year to year, but I will say when you have a strong front seven, that makes it a lot easier, right? When your defense is based on
not having an off year, just so.
Well, even if Myles Garrett has an off year, what's that, like 13 sacks, right?
Yeah,
like it's an off year for
all
Myles
things are
Garrett.
down for him, yeah.
So yeah, it's like you got Myles. That's why you drafted Mason. That's why you invested in the interior defensive line, is so that you have some consistency there.
Yep.
I've been floating around this idea, right? Because we know that things need to change on the offensive side of the ball, but we're like, I don't really want to mess with anything going on defense.
Yeah.
Some people have floated the idea of like Jim Schwartz being the head coach. I don't know if that's where he's headed. I don't think that's where he even wants to be.
No.
But I do wonder, like, if the Browns can make it to where it's like, hey, we have a top 5 defense. We don't need you to hire a defensive coordinator. We have Jim Schwartz under contract. And I know when I bring that up to people, it's unconventional. Yeah. And I think sometimes people think unconventional equals bad. But I don't know, if I were interviewing for a job, one, that you're not always going to be able to pick your coworkers, right? That's just a reality of being an adult and taking a job, right? Even in the NFL, you don't pick your GM, right? There's a ton of people that come to that job that you don't get to select as a head coach. This is why it's different than college football, right? And if you're a offensive coordinator or offensive mind interviewing for a job, I actually think it could be a selling point to say, you don't even got to worry about it. Yeah. We got defense handled. Jim Schwartz is going to handle the whole thing. He's a pro. He's not going to try to take your job, or it's not going to be like a Todd Haley situation. He's going to be able to help you out, be a former head coach that's there on the staff. The defensive guys have respect for him. He knows the locker room, be able to help you out, get some continuity there. And that way you just have to focus on the main reason why we're hiring a new coach anyways, which is improving the offense.
Yeah.
I think that can be a selling point. Because I think like people are fixated on getting a big name at coach. I tend to think that the unknown names tend to be the better hires.
Oh, I agree.
My biggest example is like Sean McDermott, Hugh Jackson, right? Like everybody was so happy for Hugh Jackson when we hired him. He was the hot name. It just tells me like the head coaching market being hot is just it's a nonsense concept. Like we don't know who's good candidates, right? This ain't like the draft where we're watching these guys play on Saturdays and like scouting them. We're just going off people's words, and the people who are usually giving us the word are the agents. Like it's not real evaluation there. So it's like, yeah, you could have hired Sean McDermott and nobody would have been excited about that, right? Because, Hugh Jackson was this quarterback guru. He was this fixer. He was going to fix the team and everything. We gave him a standing ovation. No standing ovation for Sean McDermott, but it would have been a better hire. It would have been a much better hire, right? Kevin Stefanski over Freddie Kitchens, which is what Deep Podesta wanted to do in 2019. wouldn't have been like a sexy hire. People be like, well, Kevin ain't even run offense yet, right at that point. Yeah. But would have been a better hire. Maybe we don't run into the issues we ran in with Baker Mayfield if we hired the right guy in 2019. Maybe we still have Baker Mayfield if that's the choice that they make. This kind of stuff gets overlooked when people are talking about coaching hires because everybody's like fixated on what their version of the coaching search is going to look like. But I think if you just look at it rationally and there's a job opening up and you already know that one of those sides of the ball are going to be handled and all they need is your expertise to fix the other side, I'm like, hell yeah, give me that job. Like if somebody wanted to offer me a job at a sports office or at a sports writing organization where it's like, hey, look, we got everybody to write the articles and do the print stuff and all the stuff that you don't do. All we need is somebody to do video. Hell yeah, that's a job for me. Like, yeah, that makes sense. What do you think of that concept? Do you think it's too restrictive in who you could bring in? Are you somebody who wants those big names in there, or do you see it being a benefit to some people who are willing to think more collaboratively, which I think is more in line with what the Browns want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I would personally like the idea that it's not something I had really considered. Like you said, it's a more unconventional way of looking at things. But I think, the Browns especially have drafted players on the defensive side of the ball that fit what Jim Schwartz likes to do. So I think it would be a benefit to the defense to allow them to continue using those players in a way that benefits them the most in Jim Schwartz's defense. So I like it from a logical perspective. I feel like I worry if they do want to bring in a bigger name head coach, that there's a lot of ego attached to that. And, even if they would think, oh, that's maybe a good option. I think Jim Schwartz is a great defensive coordinator. They might be like, no, I want to bring my guys in. I want to make this my thing. Not even if it's the right choice, more so just because a lot of head coaches have a lot of ego attached to them. So I would be curious to see who would be interested in that. I think it would probably be more likely someone no name type, candidate. But then at the same time, I guess a lot of those want to establish themselves and don't want to be attached to a previous regime. Maybe they want that fresh start, and it's not about what has been done there before. It's about starting fresh. So yeah, it would be cool to know who would be interested in that, because I do think that would potentially be a benefit to the team in general.
We're going to continue this conversation with me and Ab, but real quick, got to thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Real quick, just want to let you guys know Sleeper has a new offer here. They're offering a free $20 entry, no deposit required. And also, if you're a first-time user, you also will receive a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code WORSTTAKE. Again, $20 free, no deposit required. Plus, first-time users also receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. Join Sleeper. Yeah, I think one of the things that does, and I know people look at it as a negative, where it's like, oh, well, it does narrow down the field, right? Like certain people aren't going to want to take the job. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah,
because this Browns job, it's a job that requires certain things to be good at, and I think that's why they've been so hesitant to ever let go of Kevin, right?
Yeah.
Because what Kevin does really well is Kevin appreciates the process. He's willing to work within the process. And he's willing to be collaborative and not be ego-driven, right? Like, I know some people feel like Kevin has a huge ego. He might be stubborn, but he's stubborn because that's what the process is.
Yeah, it's not about him personally.
Yeah. Like, it's about what they feel like they should be doing internally and what can be the most successful thing for the team. Sometimes those ideas can be correct or not, right? But I think that's one of the things they really do appreciate about Kevin, is that he does make it easy to work with. And it's like, I don't see them going after like those big names anyways. If they're going to look for a head coach, I think they want somebody who's more willing to kind of fit their system instead of be a system in themselves, right? Like, you look at the Howie Roseman way of doing things, right? He tried that with like Chip Kelly and it didn't work out. And then Doug Peterson and it didn't work out, right? Now you have him working out with, what's the guy's name out there in Philly? The head coach there in Philly.
Oh, Sirianni.
Yeah, Nick Sirianni is now the guy that he has there, right? There's been a lot of trial and error in that process.
Before I said his name, all I could picture in my head was the clip of him crying during the national anthem on the sideline. That's like, I couldn't even think of his name. That's like all I was seeing in my head.
Every time I think of him, he's feeling some kind of intense emotion. Like it's always like one thing or the other, like anger, crying, happy, something.
And it's great when they're winning, and then I think the fans hate him when they're not.
Yeah, well, it's Philly, so like he's kind of just like that's how Philly rolls, right? So it's like I think that part of it, right, where it's like, hey, some people aren't going to want to take this because their ego's going to tell them, no, I don't want that. I think that's actually a good thing because if you want this thing to work with how the Browns are operated, what you are asking for is, hey, we need somebody with a better eye of talent to basically fulfill Kevin's role. That's what we're asking for. Right. It's not a complete reworking of how the front office works. We're just like, hey, Kevin just hasn't identified enough talent over the years, and he hasn't put those talents that he has identified in the right position to be successful enough for us to feel comfortable moving forward with them. I don't think you need to hire a genius, right? I think you need to just hire somebody who can do those things and figure that out. So yeah, I think it's important when it comes to coaching searches not to get married to names, but also like think of different ways it can go. You know, like if you don't want to make the defense change too much, then just don't change it. That's an option on the table. Like Andrew Berry was a huge part of the hiring of Jim Schwartz. I'm sure Andrew Berry can convince Jim Schwartz to stay.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't think it would be that difficult for him. And if you're Jim Schwartz, where else are you going to go?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the talent he gets to work with, like, I don't think he's, itching to go somewhere else. He's probably having.
They've loaded this thing up for you, man. Like, of course he wants to stay for that, right? It might be a little awkward here or there, but that's why you have your process and you hire somebody who can handle that. And, for me, I'm not as scared about it being somebody I know. I actually prefer it. Like, okay, let it be a stranger. Let it not be somebody I have feelings about already, right?
It's almost like less pressure in a way, just from I feel like if it's someone with such an established identity, it's like, oh, this guy's he's going to change everything for us and turn things around. If it's more of a no name, it's kind of like, okay, let's see what they can bring to the table. We're all kind of like learning together rather than having some preconceived notion of what's going to happen.
All right, so we've talked about the coaching part of this and some of the wide receiver offensive line stuff. Let's hit on the quarterback part of this really quick. There are 3 quarterbacks out here that look like they're going to be worth a top 5 pick if they declare, right? Ty Simpson out of Alabama, Fernando Mendoza out of Indiana, and Dante Moore out of Oregon. Now, what I think is interesting is that these 3 guys, different personalities, all 3 of them, right? Dante Moore, super nonchalant, super poised, never really rushed, not really talkative, just kind of a real chill personality. Ty Simpson's kind of your generic, he's got your generic quarterback, I was a 5-star in college personality. How much do you know about Fernando Mendoza?
He's probably the one I've watched more out of the 3 of them, just because of the, my Ohio State allegiance there, Big Ten. So probably have watched him a little bit more, but I mean, I don't know a ton of his like background and history, to be honest.
Okay. So Fernando Mendoza is certainly a personality at the quarterback position. Now it's nothing bad, right? He's not like, it's not like he's boisterous or anything like that. But what he is like, he is he's cheesy in such a earnest way that I do think it will work in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Because
people love cheesy here.
Yeah. Because he is like, you ever hear him at his press conference and he's like, I'll do anything for my guys. I'm willing to go out there and down the football field for them. Yeah, he's a real, like, if you didn't feel like he was earnest, it would come off like Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
But he, like, you could tell by how he talks about it. It's like, no, he genuinely means this shit. He's just this kind of guy, right? And And I think that's going to be interesting in the pre-draft process because some coaches are not going to like that. They're going to be like, this guy's weird. Like, you know, this guy's
it might
strange.
sound like a ChatGPT answer at first if you don't know him or get to know him kind of vibe. Yeah, no, I can see.
Or like he has like this like kind of like encyclopedic knowledge, and it's like, oh, this guy just like pulls up stats and like, you know, he's a very different type of guy that we're used to at the quarterback position. I can see a lot of people going and being a lot more comfortable with Ty Simpson just because that's usually what they act like, right? The quarterbacks. But I think in Cleveland, the guy who's going to solve it and the guys who have solved it at this position, they're not normal people.
No, like, you can't be.
You know, yeah, like Bernie Kosar is such a abnormal person in all the best ways possible, right? Yeah. Like nobody's ever accused Bernie of just being a regular old dude. Like no, Bernie has always been different. He decided to join the supplemental draft to try to force his way onto the Browns, right? Like this is a different cat, you know. And I think Mendoza's interesting. Because if you're looking for what this fan base needs, which is we have been through the Deshaun Watson mess, we've been through Shador wars, right? We've been through Baker wars. We've been through all of it right here, right? We are so damn cynical. We need somebody who's going to step in here and just be unreasonably positive. Like, just so earnestly positive and good spirited that you're just like, oh, like, man, this guy doesn't feel like he's touched by any of it. And I think it's kind of like, remember with the Mike Vick thing, and they were coming off of that. Mm-hmm. And then they draft Matt Ryan, of all people, right, from Boston College. Ended up being the best thing for them because it's like, oh, man, that's exactly what they needed, which is Matt Ryan, right? Good old clean-cut, boring-ass Matt Ryan. Great transition from Mike Vick, right? Yeah. I think Mendoza, and just how earnest and positive he is, like on top of like he's a good football player. He's a really good quarterback. I think that's a really good fit for Cleveland because it's like he's not even going to really identify the cynicism in the fan base when he comes here. He's just going to be like, yeah, man, they love football and so do I. I'm willing to die for the dog pound. And we're going to hear that. He's going to take like one shoulder into a Steeler player's chest and then we're going to be like, yeah, that's our guy.
Yeah. Like, I think it would be like a good contrast too. Let's say they were to continue with like Kevin and Andrew and nothing changes with the coaching staff or front office.
That's a great point.
Being so much more like for a lot of people, how they feel like they kind of sound more scripted, saying the same thing, you know, repeatedly. They kind of aren't very emotional, just very cut and dry. This is our process. This is how we work. To have the quarterback be a contrast to that brings a little more like, hey, I'm happy to be here, emotion, you know, a little bit of a different vibe. I think that might be exciting for fans, you know, when they've had a lot of complaints over the years of kind of the way the coaches and the front office speak.
Yeah, I think Cleveland just wants to know that you give a fuck, right? Yeah, like that's the main thing Cleveland wants to know is that you care. Like like if
Reese the other day saying about Dylan Gabriel earlier this week, he was like, yeah, we trust our evaluation of him. And it's like, people don't want to hear that right now. Like, even if that's how you guys are operating in your process, people want to hear some more, you know, emotion and understanding for the fans behind it. And I think that's what they want to see in a quarterback for sure.
And it's not like it's Baker Mayfield energy. Yeah, it's like chip on my shoulder. It is honest to God. He just like, I just think that kid wakes up and goes, I'm so happy to play football today. And just like does his stuff. Like he's like SpongeBob almost, right? Like it was like, I'm ready. Like he's just ready for the day. And it's like, I think some people might be hesitant when they see that, but when if he's on the Browns, and he's talking about it and like he's gonna learn the history, right? And he's going to care about it. You know, like I saw one interview where he was at Cal where he was like, you know, on the field, they had a 97-yard game-winning drive. He was like, it just means so much to me and my boys to be able to get this drive. We worked all year for this. You know, this is everything to me. You know, I'll be going like he's really earnest about it. And like you could tell he might be a little strange, right? You know,
Yeah.
But he gives a fuck.
Yeah.
And that's all we need, right?
Yeah.
Like if we're questioning like the Deshaun thing, people question whether he cared all the time, right? You know, Dylan Gabriel he's so robotic out there. Nobody can attach anything to him at this point, right? Like people want to know that you care, that you want this to be good. Like I think that's the thing that Shadour's done really good is like, hey, you know, he owns a house here, right? Like he's been to the local schools that like most athletes don't go to, right? Like there's an element of like, hey, that guy cares. And that's who fans are going to gravitate towards. And I think if you're a team that's coming out of just the rampant cynicism, the negativity that's been here, and the fact that we just feel like nobody gives a fuck right now, getting that guy to be the quarterback, especially if your evaluation lines up with him being a top 5 pick, I think that is the perfect way to walk out the Watson era, which is like, okay, we got out of that, but here's this spunky kid who just wants to play football, loves playing football, and he cares about winning with this team, and he's not doing the traditional athlete stuff, worried about his brand and worried about all this other stuff. This dude just is like a throwback of like, hey, he just wants to play football. You know, he's like a football nerd that's like 6'5", 225 and really good at the sport. And I think people will appreciate that.
Yeah, it's almost the same conversation we were having about you know, Kevin and being like, maybe they just need change and something different, even if, you know, there's it was still working. It's like, yeah, sometimes you just need to see something totally opposite when the other direction just wasn't working. And yeah, no, I love that argument. And I think we could end up seeing that. There's some real potential there for that to be the outcome.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see, right? Because how they move on from this era is going to be incredibly important because you still have enough to be a good football team going forward. And you can stretch that out till you get to the core, to the prime, to these guys that you just drafted, to where like you can have a long-term period of success here. You know, and it can start as early as this offseason.